Good morning. I hope that you had a great night. Welcome on board. This is Morning Cafe with me, Linda Alela Karibu Sana. So much lined up for you. We take a look at what is happening politically, matters education, matters health, and so much more. It's always a pleasure doing this with you as I look forward to hear from you. The hashtag, as always, is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE across all our social media platforms. I'll be sampling what you tell us as we continue with the broadcast. 22047 is the SMS short code. It's my hope that you are set to engage as we speak matters of politics on these few days that we're left with to get to the general election. And so that's exactly what we've been looking at, the polls that are out there. So one would want to look at them as the exit polls, those polls that are prior to the general election. Just what do they dictate, and are they anything to go by? A majority would say that, well, polls are normally sponsored and therefore we cannot bank on the same. But then we have about three that place Right Honorable Raila Odinga, top of Deputy President William Ruto. But then again, the two contenders, or the two main contenders on this very presidential race. And therefore, we are keen to see what these polls mean. But above everything, just get to understand how well set we are in terms of preparation, the IEBC, as well as the courts, as well as all the stakeholders that are at the heart of this general election. So let's get into this. In a bit, I'll be introducing the guests that will help me decipher on this. But as of now, we start by taking a look at the papers as well, just to remind you that later we'll be taking a look at matters, hospitality, just getting to understand how the hospitality industry looks like, especially after the tough times, the unprecedented times of COVID-19. We still have COVID-19 right here, but we're glad that this particular sector is revamping back. And so we'll be having that conversation as to what is in this school of hospitality, but above everything, just how far then one can push it in terms of making sure that, they gain monies. And so we get to the papers this morning, the Standard newspaper, the People Daily, as well as the Daily Nation. These are the papers that we look at as we continue with the broadcast. Front page of the Daily Nation, Raila favorite to win, says a poll. First round victory depends on 7% undecided voters. But are they undecided? These are some of the things that we ask this morning. First round victory, as I have said, will highly be dependent on the undecided voters, according to the polls that are out there. Two polls released, that is as of yesterday, indicating that Right Honorable Raila Odinga gained over Ruto in the last 1 month after statistical ties in the previous popularity test. Story captured on the front page and is expounded further on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That must be huge. And so 5 days to the general election, that is next Tuesday. 3 surveys released yesterday by Nation Media Group, Infotrak, and IPSOS all show Odinga has stretched his lead to between about 6 and 9 percentage points, and significantly beyond the margin of error, pointing to the beginning of the end of a statistical dead heat as both camps ramp up their campaigns. And you have realized that towards this last minutes, they say they'll be keen on trying to woo their strongholds. And then on the very last days of the campaigns, then they'll be coming back to the city, the main city of the land of Kenya, that is Nairobi, as well, to speak to the people. The polls, position Right Honorable Raila Odinga at 49%, while the other, says that, Deputy President William Ruto takes 41%. That's according to the Nation Media Group poll. So we'll be looking at this as well, not forgetting the two other faces, the presidential contenders, Githiga Mwangi, as well as George Wajakoya, and, what they have managed to garner. So we'll be trying to decipher this as we get to understand just how crucial it is for people to get to understand the numbers as they stand, and whether then we can bank on these polls. Politicians must now end the hate crusades. On this very last hour of campaigns, we say that it is important that we maintain that aspect of peace, and therefore politicians have been called upon to make sure that such is what they speak of, they propagate at this very last moments. It's not been all rosy. We've had pockets of, some violence and intolerance across the different parts of the country, and this then needs to be addressed. And the architect of Nairobi and Dar es Salaam bomb attacks killer in American raid, well, Ayman al-Zawahiri, accused of 1998 twin bombings in the two East African capitals that killed more than about 240 people, fell in Kabul. A story captured on the back page of the Daily Nation as well. This very story finds itself on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Al-Zawahiri, how U.S. nailed top terror chief. Well, it's been quite years since 1998 after that attack and the numerous others conducted by his team. A look at the Al-Qaeda leader who evaded U.S. capture for about 21 years after the suicide airliner attacks that changed America and its relations with the rest of the world as well, as captured right there, expounded on page 3 from this one on the back page of the Daily Nation, and as well celebrating the greatness of our sprint king, that is Ferdinand Omanyala. A story captured on the front page as well as on the back page of the Daily Nation. Commonwealth Games, and after disappointing outing of the World Championships, that is in Eugene, Africa's fastest man, Omanyala started the Commonwealth Games on a high note, and so we are looking forward to see just how well they carry the flag of the country. Congratulations, and again, all the best. Standard newspaper again on the front page. High stakes, the 10 big names to watch. Exactly what I started by saying. The few figures that are stakeholders that are at the heart of this process of election. And so we are keen to see just what they will do to make sure that they are involved, but above everything, to make sure that this process is smooth for purposes of clarity, and above everything for making sure that the people of Kenya then are able to enjoy a peaceful coexistence thereafter. High stakes, the 10 big names to watch. We're talking about the likes of Chebukati, we're talking about the likes of President Uhuru Kenyatta, who then is the one who says that he will guarantee a peaceful transition, and the numerous faces that sit in this big process that will be incorporated in making sure that Kenyans are accorded a free and fair process. And therefore, the country goes to the polls to elect the next president in 5 days. And therefore, the focus is on the outgoing head of state, who is actively campaigning for his choice of successor, and as well 8 men and a woman who carry the hopes and fears of a nation. A story captured on page 6. They are at the heart of the processes of the election. I mean, looking at the previous ones as well as the current ones in terms of justice, that is on the aspect of laws, in terms of making sure that they are out there to give us security, in terms of making sure that then again the process is free and fair, that is the IEBC, as well as without interference, and also the key contenders that are enjoying lots of support right here in the country. Right Honorable Raila Odinga, as well as Deputy President William Ruto. And abrupt school closure leaves students stranded. That is the story captured on page 4 of the Standard newspaper, and 3 out of 4 polls, Raila, 3 out of 4 polls put Raila in the lead as well. That's a story captured on page 12. Those are the key stories that we'll be looking at as captured on the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper. Let's briefly look whether we have anything on the People Daily, but then again a bit of a delay in terms of how it loads. Once it's open, we'll be here to discuss. And yes, it speaks of the polls, as I have said. Polls put Raila ahead of Deputy President William Ruto, and so we'll be discussing the polls this morning. And Uhuru Commission's shipyard as well. We have seen President Uhuru Kenyatta focused on making sure that, in his last days in office, then he's worked to commission lots of projects that began during his reign. And so we'll be looking at all this as we continue with the broadcast. Those are the main stories that would perhaps require our attention, apart from this one of the Reverend. And so we'll be looking at all that. Schools in food transport crisis following closure, as captured right there. Head teachers say stocks of perishable foodstuff will go to waste after learners left for home yesterday upon that order by the Ministry of Education that got a majority flat-footed. This, in a bid to make sure that it's a smooth ride as the IEBC then prepares itself for the general election. It has to be known that some of these classes and schools then will be used as, polling stations, and therefore preparations then are very, very important, something that Wafula Chebukati indeed appreciated. And so we get to see of what ramification it will be, but above everything, just how well then it will be easy for the schools to manage. Let's briefly look at what has been prepared by my team. Not so much happening on the roads, and therefore we might not want to focus much on that. In case of anything that is alarming, I'll be here to keep you up to tabs. Now, Safaricom has unveiled a new brand campaign dubbed Tuinuane that is aimed at encouraging Kenyans to uplift one another. Now, in the spirit of Tuinuane, Safaricom intends to empower communities, grant students easy access to learning materials, and unveil innovative products and services that give customers value for money. Speaking during the launch, Safaricom CEO Peter Ndegwa said that more initiatives in line with the Tuinuane spirit will be announced, including the M-Pesa Junior account for young Kenyans between the age of 10 to 18 years, as well as mobile-based investment solution that will allow M-Pesa users to invest and earn interest.
Of the current economic crisis, fuel pricing is under pressure. Unga is under pressure. I remember when we went to launch the Doto Zetu initiative in Thika, one of the journalists said, "What is your version of the 100 shillings unga that government has announced?" And the reason for that is Kenyans expect Safaricom to row in when there is a major issue like this one. So as a business, we are keen to find solutions to help the country weather this economic storm, because we know that it is, if the country weathers the economic storm, then we have a business that is sustainable. And we believe that our growth needs to be inclusive, and we need to carry others along.
And Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Gender and Senior Citizens Affairs, Professor Margaret Kobia, has asked all women to rally behind Azimio One Kenya ticket ahead of the August polls. Kobia was speaking at the Kabete School of Government during the Maendeleo Wanawake's 70th anniversary celebrations. The event, which brought together more than about 100 women across the country, gave an opportunity to the CS to explain why they should vote for Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. Other women on the podium used an opportunity to preach peace ahead of the August polls.
I want to mention that voting is your democratic right. Na ni siri yako. Let's take our choices of who we choose to lead. We have an opportunity to decide who to choose to lead. Let's take courage to vote. Let's take courage to vote out corruption.
Tumeshaambiwa hapa kwamba tusitulie na huyu mama kutoka Nigeria. Amesema tusitulie. Sisi tuna nguvu ya umoja wetu, na kama serikali haitupi haki zetu, tutazichukua kwa mikono yetu. Na tutazichukua kupitia kwa uongozi wetu wa maendeleo ya wanawake. Kwa hivyo pale ambapo tunaona kwamba tunanyanyaswa, tuna chombo hiki cha maendeleo ambacho kwa kweli ndicho kipaza sauti chetu cha kutetea haki za mwanamke wa Kenya.
When a mother leads the family, even at difficult times like now, the children and the man, the husband, they will eat. Will they eat or not? Because women are caring, women give all, they would rather stay hungry, but make sure the children have eaten.
Tumuombe Mungu atubarikie inji, atupatie viongozi, na sisi tunapendekeza Baba Raila Amolo Odinga na Martha Karua. Sisi hatuna kazi.
Residents of Malindi, Kilifi County have expressed their disappointment following the shortage of maize flour witnessed in recent days. And led by Abdallah Mwangi, the residents urged the government to move with speed to address the issue that continues to hurt many households as they depend on the flour for their daily meal.
Despite reduction of prices of maize flour from 230 shillings to 100 shillings for a 2 kg packet, residents of Malindi town, Kilifi County continue to decry shortage of the commodity in supermarkets and retail shops.
Tangu serikali ilipotangaza unga ni shilingi 100, hakuna maafikiano ya kueleweka baina yao wao na wale wenye kusaga unga. Na hii inaleta matatizo ya nini? Ya unga kukosekana kwenye maduka. Kwa sababu hawa watu si kwamba Kenya hakuna unga. Unga upo, lakini watu wameuficha. Sijui wanasubiri nini.
The residents further blaming the shortage of the commodity on the ongoing campaigns, urging leaders to cease politicizing the commodity.
Kiwa mimi nitatumia nauri zaidi ya shilingi 100 nikitafuta unga wa shilingi 100, sijui nitakuwa nafanya nini. Kwa sababu nitatoka hapa nitaambiwa unga upatikana mahali fulani. Hapo mahali ni lazima nilipie nauri ya bajaji ya shilingi 50. Nikimbie mpaka pale. Nikifika niambiwe unga hakuna, umeisha. Hapo nipate mwingine ananiambia nimeacha mahali fulani kuna unga. Nikimbie mbio nikiwa na tamaa ya kupata unga. Mwisho nikifika pale nikuta hakuna unga. Tayari hiyo ni shilingi 100. Niliobakia nayo mfukoni ni shilingi 50. Inabidi nimpatie yule bajaji nimwambie sasa niliobakia nirudishe nyumbani. Nimetumia 150 na unga bado sijapata.
We have called upon the government to work closely with maize flour manufacturers to ensure Kenyans have access to the commodity at a fair and affordable price.
Tuache kuumiza mwananchi wa chini. Kama ni kuwawacha wakulima wafanye kazi yao, angalia project kama ya Galana Kulalo. Hatungekuwa na issue ya unga. Kesho tutaanza kulipiwa subsidy ya sukari. Tafadhali wanasiasa. Hili swala la unga ni swala ambalo linaibisha taifa la Kenya. Haifai nchi kama ya Kenya kuwa ati inalipia wa Kenya subsidy ya unga.
Malindi residents have further urged Kenyans to maintain peace even as the country prepares for the August 9 general election. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Reactions continue to trickle from all across the country following a directive by Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha to ensure that all schools be closed Tuesday. That is to give Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission ample time to prepare for August 9th general election. Beatrice Otare with more.
The directive by CS George Magoha to have all schools closed caused an uproar as hundreds of students from many schools all across the country were stranded as they braved rainfall, waiting for passenger service vehicles to their homes. Parents from Githogori sub-county say that they are going through a difficult time from the harsh economic status, adding that they have had to battle with sudden expenses that were earlier on not budgeted for.
Tetea gharama sana juu kitu tulikuwa tumepanga juu kwa saa hii tumeambiwa ghafla jana ati watoto wanafunga masule. Saa hii hata kama ni fair ni kukopa tunakopa. Yeah? Saa hii watoto wametoka mbali, saa hii mimi nimeendea mtoto wangu kutoka huko Githogori. Saa hii hata mimi sina fare, saa hii nimeitisha mtu hapa rafiki yangu. Yeah? Saa hii tunataka kuuliza serikali, kwani hii maneno ya kukuja kitu kusema kwa ghafla, hii ni serikali gani? Hata kama ni Magoha lazima atuambie kama wanatuzia uoga ama ni nini, tujue ukweli ya mambo.
Distress was further expressed following the changes in the school calendar that have disrupted proper planning of funds as well as the performance of their children.
Fees tulikuwa kwanza tumepandishiwa na ulizaje watoto wakirudi shule tutalipa the same amount at any term. Tunaomba hii term yote tusilipishwe kitu juu hatuna mahali hiyo ya kuokota pesa. Hatuna pesa, hatuna kazi, lakini wakifunga wanaambiwa kila mtu arudi na school fees. Kila mtu akuje na remedium. Kila mtu akuje na pesa fulani. Hatuna channels za kupata pesa, lakini serikali kikaka ni kama wanatafuta pesa na mashule.
According to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC, about 250 schools will be used as polling stations in the next general elections. Reporting for TV47, my name is Beatrice Watare.
Now, marking his last official tour to Kisumu as head of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta traversed the Lake Basin region with a handful of goodies that will expand the region and matters infrastructure, making history in the very fast flotation of the MV Uhuru II made in the country by the Kenyans, or as of course explained by Modoni Maina.
Kenya made history after 118 years with the unveiling of the first ship vessel built in Kenya, dubbed MV Uhuru II by President Uhuru Kenyatta, which was built in the country after the upgrade of the Kisumu shipyard that will see the expansion of businesses in the region.
What has impressed me most is the number of young Kenyans, men and women, who have been empowered through acquisition of critical skills in shipbuilding. Furthermore, knowledge transfer is being implemented through internship programs and hands-on job training throughout the construction phase of the vessel that we see to my left.
The Kenyan-made vessel is 100 meters long with a capacity of carrying up to 22 wagons and an estimated capacity of 2 million liters of crude oil per trip.
Finding it important for us to re-establish ourselves as a shipbuilding country. And today that is visible, that if we apply ourselves, we can be able to achieve much more. Let me thank the...
While overseeing the flotation of MV Uhuru II, Kenyatta said that it is in alignment with the blue economy and the Big Four agenda, urging the county government to take note of the opportunity at hand to expand the region.
So therefore today, I would urge the county governments in the Lake region to begin to draw up strategies and take advantage of the economic opportunities spawned by the Kisumu shipyard.
Traversing the Lake Basin region, Kenyatta issued out 450 million Kenya shillings to the Nzoia sugarcane mill in Bungoma County so as to restore its glory as well as reduce the debt arrears of workers and sugarcane farmers.
Merudi tena na milioni 450 ya kumaliza kulipa wakulima wote ambao hawajalipwa. Tunaelewana wenzangu? Na hawa watu mimi nataka wawe wamelipwa by this coming Friday. Kila mkulima kwa akaunti yake awe na pesa yake kwa akaunti yake.
The move was commended by Bungoma Governor Wycliffe Wangamati and Kanduyi MP Wafula Wamunyinyi, saying that the sugarcane mill will soon be back on its feet to benefit the citizenry.
Mheshimiwa Rais, haijakuwa rahisi. Sisi umetufanyia mengi na sisi tumesema tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8 hapa ni kura ni ya baba.
Mimi najua vile wamekuja hapa, malipo ya wakulima na shida ya wafanyikazi inaanza kukwisha leo.
Mavoni Maina, TV47.
Asante sana.
Afraha Stadium is very significant to the current administration. 10 years ago, the then TNA and URP political parties merged in a colorful political event. The stadium, Chichi Josephine takes a look at the significance of Afraha Stadium to the already dented Uhuru political marriage.
December 2nd, 2012, the then TNA party leader Uhuru Kenyatta and his URP counterpart William Ruto launched the Jubilee Alliance at the Afraha Stadium ahead of the March 4th, 2013 general election. This being considered as the cradle of political coalitions due to the declarations and decisions made here.
Hii ni siku ya pekee ya kwamba tuungana na marafiki TNA ambao wako na nia na fikra kama yetu.
Nakuru has played host to high-octane political events for many years. The Azimio la Umoja Coalition, the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, and the Grand Union of URP and TNA in 2012 into the Jubilee Party that later formed the current government were formed and officially launched here.
Kukafuata mambo ya kukubaliana kuungana sasa kuwa kitu kimoja, yani kuunganisha
kuunganisha hiyo vyama viwili, the TNA and URP iwe Jubilee. Na ni hapa chini, nikisema hapa chini watu ya Nakuru wataelewa ninasema ni Afraha, kiwanja kingine that is next to Afraha Stadium. Walibadilishana kofia yao.
But there was only one thing that even Ruto, I think he was also having a problem with his people joining Mount Kenya. Don't forget previously William Ruto was a member of ODM. So working with the people at the mountain and working with the people from the lake was really a big issue. But finally they agreed. And Uhuru came and said, and we agree with Uhuru now, that is the way to go.
In December 2012, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto decided to bring together parties into a coalition, the idea being to consolidate support countrywide for the presidency.
Na wao kwa unyenyekevu, jambo ambalo lilikuwa halijawahi kuonekana kwa muda mrefu, sio tu walihitaji maombi, ila walipiga magoti mbele za Mwenyezi Mungu na wakaombewa.
Vile wote wawili walikuwa wakitaka kuwa president, wote wawili waliongea, walipomaliza kuongea, so Ruto akakubali kwamba atawacha kuwania kiti ya president, ndio awe deputy wake, ndio wasaidiane na Uhuru. Na Uhuru from Kikuyu community and Ruto from Kalenjin community, and these were the two main tribes wenye walikuwa wakipigana siku hiyo, ikawa inaonekana ni combination mzuri.
Their move was greeted with overwhelming support from 14 political parties. In an elaborate dissolution, the parties gave way to a coalition party that is today's Jubilee Party.
The foundation of the leadership of the Jubilee government came as a result of tuko pamoja, and that the fruits of the tuko pamoja is the existing peace up to date. We do not have any other system of government in Kenya apart from the Jubilee administration, coming from the Grand Coalition government to Jubilee administration.
Despite the cases that would later follow at the International Criminal Court on their shoulders, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto entered into a deal at the Afraha Stadium in Nakuru that would see them ascend to State House.
It was more even heavier and more weightier, because the president had already been sued in the Netherlands. So you see, when so the compatriot and William Ruto is not a friend to His Excellency the President. He is in fact a confidant.
The Uhuru Union continued revealing and playing significantly with the duo dress code of matching red ties, white shirts, interpreted as a sign of a hard-working pair.
Wali set base ambaye mimi kama kiongozi hatutawacha. Hiyo base ambaye wali set ya amani hatutawacha, tutafuata hiyo laini ya kuwa amani.
Na ikawa furaha kubwa sana ya kuwa kwa mara ya kwanza viongozi wamenyenyekea, wameungana na wako tayari kutangaza amani katika mji wa Kenya.
With many promises being made at the Afraha rally, Uhuru promised to have his 10-year tenure and have Ruto succeed him for 10 years, a promise that is yet to prevail.
Hivyo wale ambao wanafikiria ati watakuja kusimama hapa waniambie ni nani nitaandika, ni nani nitafuta, mimi nawaambia kitu kimoja peke yake, ya kwamba wagojee miaka 10 Uhuru amalize kazi yake, alafu wagojee miaka ingine 10 Ruto amalize kazi yake.
The duo have been political allies for at least a decade. The political relationship between them dates as far back as the December 2002 general election. Both were senior officials in the then governing KANU party. Kenyatta was the party's presidential candidate, while Ruto was his chief campaigner, where Kenyatta lost and conceded, Ruto being by his side. Afraha would play host to the duo in 2017 when seeking re-election.
Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta, mae kwa mapenzi ya Mungu, kuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
At this rally, the duo promised, among other things, good development record, industrial park in Naivasha, free maternity care for newborn babies, and subsidized fertilizer.
Tuweze kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeinua, tumepanua uchumi, na ndio vijana wetu waweze kujisimamia pahali popote walipo.
Things began going south after the March 9, 2018 handshake between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta that signified a political truce between them.
So kidogo tukasikia tu Uhuru amesema ameenda kuleta mtu mwingine mwenye atamsaidia. Ati huyo ndio ataleta amelete amani hata atuelewi.
The Building Bridges initiative, which had Uhuru's backing, dented their relationship further. Ruto led the opposing faction.
Niliwaambia kule Bomas, hii BBI iko na shida. Yale mambo yako ndani ya hapa BBI haipeleki Kenya mbele, inarudisha Kenya nyuma.
The duo's relationship has been broken down in the past 4 years over differences related to President Kenyatta's succession in 2022, as Uhuru Kenyatta publicly declared support for Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga.
Nawauliza kwa heshima kubwa sana, shikeni huyu mzee mkono jameni.
Hatujui ni nini ilifanyika katikati kukawa na shida. Hakuna siku wamekuja wote wawili tena wakasema tumewachana sababu ya hii na ile.
Huwa ninasema hivi, kama unamuoa mwanamke hadharani, ni vizuri pia muache hadharani, vile ulifanya tu itakuwa ni heshima. Lakini sasa sisi tunaona waliachana kisiri, kile tunatambua ni matamshi ambayo wanaongea.
This was not a normal marriage, it was a lock-up. And that lock-up brought the peace that we have in this country.
This was the launching pad of the Uhuru Grand Union that Kenyans witnessed. But the question remains, what happened to the Grand Union along the way? Chichi Josephine, TV47, Nakuru County.
Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, has started the distribution of polling materials to the counties 6 days ahead of the general election. Some of the materials that are being distributed include ballot papers, KMS kits, the voters register, and ballot boxes, among other key polling materials, as Mwangi Maina tells us.
IEBC officials from Marsabit County have expressed their fears of a possible power blackout during the voting period, occasioned by lack of power in the county. For 4 days running, Marsabit town has been in darkness, with the restoration of power still in doubt. The county's elections manager says lack of power in the county might impact on the voting exercise and the process, consequently affecting the delivery of a credible poll. IEBC officials says Kenya Power and Lighting Company KPLC has acknowledged power loss in parts of Marsabit County and are asking the company to reconnect affected areas with power as soon as possible.
Na tumeshirikiana na watu wa Kenya Power. Tumewahimiza wajaribu kumaliza hiyo tatizo kabla ya tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8 mwaka huu. Ni jambo ambalo linaweza kutatiza mambo yetu sana, shughuli zetu za uchaguzi, kwa sababu sasa tuko kwa siku za mwisho.
Tunahofia kwa sababu hatujui kama hii uchaguzi itakuwa huru na haki, kwa sababu kama stima itapotea, IEBC pia wanatumia stima, kufanya tallying inatumia stima, vitu mingi inatumia stima, na ikiendelea hivyo tunahofia pia hii election haitakuwa ya huru na haki, na pia Marsabit County mara mingi kuna tension, na hiyo tension kama hakuna stima na wale wakora pia wanachukua advantage na kuharibu vitu.
With a vast Marsabit County lacking internet connectivity in some regions, the elections manager says the IEBC has provided satellite modems to the county that will be used to relay results to the National Tallying Center in Nairobi.
Ya hilo ni jambo ambalo tume imeshughulikia kwa kuleta thuraya satellite phones zile zitatumika kwa maeneo ambayo ina network.
In Nandi County, the county elections manager has confirmed that they have received 90% of polling materials, and the distribution of those materials to the 6 constituencies tallying centers in the county will begin in earnest. Training of presiding officers in the county is expected to come to a close tomorrow, with the training of polling clerks expected to kick off on Thursday.
We are also distributing our election materials. We have received virtually 90% of the materials, which we have also gone ahead and distributed to the various constituencies for them to check whether they have the right quantities, whether there is any shortage, so that we are able to, to mitigate on time.
Nandi County has in excess of 400,000 voters and 165 candidates eyeing various seats. In Kisii County, the distribution of polling materials from the county IEBC headquarters to the constituency tallying centers in the county has begun. The county elections manager has asked all voters to confirm their voter details from the already available voter register at all the polling stations.
Na tunatarajia siku hii ya leo wataweza kupandika majina yote katika vituo vyetu. Kwa hivyo wapiga kura wetu tunawaomba muhakikisha kwamba mko sawa katika vituo vyetu wa kupiga kura, ili siku hiyo ikifika tuweze kujumuika pamoja kuchagua viongozi wetu.
Distribution of polling materials in the counties is expected to continue Wednesday. Mwangi Maina, TV47.
All right, 5 days to the polls, and a number of civil society organizations have joined hands to launch a platform dubbed the Election Situation Room to process critical election-related incidents over the next 2 weeks. The organizations emphasizing this is to ensure a credible and safe election. TV47's Moiga William with the details.
The fight against misinformation and disinformation has received a major boost as the country heads to the polls, with a group of civil society organizations coming together to fight the growing problem from a common front. 9 civil society organizations drawn from both the local and international scene have come together to form the Uchaguzi platform, further launching an election situation room to process critical election-related incidents over the next 2 weeks. According to the organizations, this is to ensure the 2022 polls are credible, noting the high stakes involved in the 2022 general election.
This, as you know, will be a transitional election. But most crucially, for the first time in our history, we are steering an election where the 2 leading candidates or coalitions have an equal claim to the incumbency. And this probably underscores the complex nature of this election.
The election situation room will monitor social media sites and also at the same time enable Kenyans to share real-time election-related information, which will later be disseminated to relevant stakeholders for rapid response.
The election situation room will support election stakeholders in mitigating electoral malpractices, managing misinformation, and the potential for violence. Anyone across Kenya can share reports and experiences before, during, and after the elections to the election situation room.
The civil society organizations reiterated all these collective measures are to ensure that the poll body IEBC delivers not only a credible election but also a peaceful one.
We must acknowledge that elections and the outcomes can provoke very strong feelings. In many cases, these strong feelings will also spark very intense conversations and reactions. Despite this, citizens must feel free at all times to exercise their democratic and electoral rights.
Kenyans across the country can send any election-related information during and after elections to the Situation Room by sending a short message to 23102 or dialing *063#. Moige William, TV47, Nairobi.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i has deployed security personnel in the Rift Valley region, focusing on Uasin Gishu County in a bid to intensify security in the area ahead of the August 9th polls. Flora Limuki with that.
With only 6 days remaining to the general election, security measures in the country have been intensified, as Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i announced the deployment of more security personnel in the Rift Valley region, specifically in Eldoret, Molo and Kerusoi.
I need to confirm to the residents of Rift Valley that the National Security Council has ordered additional security resources for this region. And so you are going to see increased deployment and patrol of more of our GSU teams here.
At the same time, Matiang'i says that at least 8 people have been arrested in relation to leaflets bearing threats that circulated in Uasin Gishu County.
Our people, I am convinced beyond any shadow of doubt. I have intelligence officers here who will tell you Kenyans are determined to be peaceful. They love their country. They want a peaceful country. And you will see, I don't think there's going to be any problem. By now, we'll have gotten information if there was going to be any challenge. Even though it took us hours to get a hold of those people, the suspects that we now have, we are not going to pass judgment on them. As a law-abiding government, we are going to take them to a court of law. That's what we are supposed to do.
The Interior CS assured Kenyans of their security and urged them to remain peaceful before, during, and after Tuesday's polls.
We are ready as security sector players to provide support to the IEBC to conduct the general elections on the 9th. We are ready totally.
Reporting for TV47, I'm Flora Limuki.
Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has rubbished claims by Kenya Kwanza allies that security officials and chiefs are being misused. Matiang'i, who spoke in Nakuru, defended his meetings with the chiefs, noting that it is his job to liaise with the chiefs in order to receive intelligence from the grassroots. And as Stanley Nyagirita reports, the CS warned the politicians against peddling propaganda to the public.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i has today defended his meetings with security officials, county commissioners and chiefs. While speaking in Nakuru, Matiang'i rubbished the Kenya Kwanza claims that the ministry had motives to influence the August general elections.
First of all, the claim that chiefs are being met or chiefs are being misused is as ridiculous as it sounds. You know, I have seen some of these politicians warning me against meeting chiefs and so on. It's like, can you imagine warning the minister?
The CS noted that it is his job to liaise with chiefs in order to receive intelligence from the grassroots level.
Colleagues in the security sector are chiefs. In fact, hardly a day passes without me speaking to a chief, receiving a call from a chief, or a DC or a county commissioner. These are my colleagues. These are the people we work with. So PS Kibicho and myself, we have been meeting chiefs all along. I was actually amused yesterday when one of those candidates was speaking from Trans Nzoia and warning me, warning PS Kibicho, warning our county commissioner in Trans Nzoia against meeting chiefs.
Matiang'i further noted that the chiefs were neutral and were acting within the law. He further warned politicians against peddling propaganda to the public.
People come of age. Our democracy is mature. People can tell nonsense from, all those kinds of things and the claims that are being made around. Even the claim that you had yesterday that the leaflets were authored by people from the office of the president. Now, we have 8 suspects in police custody and none of them is an employee of the office of the president.
Kenya Kwanza deputy presidential candidate Rigathi Gachagua, while campaigning in Eldoret yesterday, asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to instruct Matiang'i and Principal Secretary Kanjo Kibicho against creating ethnic animosity.
Lakini we want you to go a step further, Your Excellency the President. Can you give instructions to Karaja Kibicho and Matiang'i to stop fomenting ethnic animosity in Kenya? Uambie hawa. Na rais tukuambie ujue, hawa watu ya Mount Kenya, no amount of leaflets can incite them against William Ruto.
Stanley Nyagirita, TV47, Nairobi.
Leaders from the Rift Valley have criticized the Interior Ministry's move to send more security officers to the area 6 days before next week's general election, citing the move as one that is creating fear among residents. Our reporter Boniface Baraza has been keen on this and taken tabs to update us more.
While drumming up support for former Cherangani constituency member of parliament Wesley Korir, the leaders questioned the government's move to deploy more security officers to Molo, Naisut and Eldoret. Kangogo Bowen is Marakwet East member of parliament.
Nimesikia kwamba kuna polisi wameletwa hapa Wasingishu. Wengi sana wamepelekwa Molo, wameletwa Nakuru. Hatujui kwamba kama polisi wanakuja kuchunga amani ama wanakuja kuvuruka kura. Lakini tunataka tuambie serikali, tunataka tuambie rais wetu, hawa polisi waende Kerio Valley ambao watu wengi wanaangamia sababu ya wakora.
Serikali kuu wameongeza mapolisi wengi, si ndio? Wanataka kututia uoga na kuweka hofu hapa, si ndio? Lakini mimi nataka kuwaeleza hivi, msiwe na hofu, msiwe na uoga. Tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8 muamke mapema, muende mpige kura. Usalama itadumu, si ndio? Msiingishwe uoga.
On his part, Wazingishu County Governor Jackson Mandago claimed the move could be used to disrupt voting in areas believed to be strongholds of Kenya Kwanza Alliance.
Hao watu wa Azimio
ndio ameenda kuchochea huko atuwalete askari hapa wajaze kila mahali. Sababu si kulinda amani, ni kuogopesha nyinyi kwenda kupiga kura. Tokeni asubuhi na mapema na mwambie afande, how are you? Ndani ya serikali ya Kenya kwanza, mshahara utaongezewa, kitu kubwa utapewa na uache kitu kidogo.
The leaders have said the residents will make their own independent choice, further asking them to maintain peace during this electioneering period and after the polls.
Sisi ni makabila mengi. Sisi tumeishi kama mandugu na madada. Sisi tumejuana, tumeoana. Wakati wa uchaguzi tunataka to maintain amani ya kutosha.
Tusikue na maneno ya ukabila hapa. Umesikia watu wengine wamesema kuna makaratasi pale imetupwa sijui jamii fulani na fulani. Wacha nikwambie hakuna jamii walitupa hiyo vijikaratasi. Hiyo ni serikali.
They also urged President Uhuru Kenyatta not to get involved in succession matrix, but instead focus on uniting the country as he exits the stage.
Uhuru Kenyatta, wewe umekuwa president wetu kwa miaka 10. We have respected you. You have done what you have done. Bwana Kenyatta, tafadhali leave a legacy of having a country that is peaceful and a peaceful transition.
This comes as Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i maintains that the government will deploy more officers to the Rift Valley region for peaceful purposes. Bonfas Barasa, TV47, Cherangani constituency, Trans Nzoia County.
The country's 22.1 million registered voters spread across 229 polling stations will, from, of course, today know whether their voice will count on the ballot on Tuesday next week. After the electoral body, IEBC distributed the gazetted voters register as required by law to all the polling stations. IEBC has further announced 2 additional toll numbers that voters can use to verify their details by sending their identity card number and year of birth. And as TV47's Apollo Kamau reports, the final consignment of ballot papers arrives today.
The all-important voters register, which the electoral body IEBC confirms is now available across the more than 46,000 polling stations countrywide, and the Commission's capability to deliver a credible poll was a focus of IEBC's engagement with the media, election observers and other interested parties at the Bomas of Kenya.
What is happening in IEBC?
IEBC telling Kenyans to check their details in the gazetted register printed across the polling stations. Alternatively, Kenyans can send their identity card numbers and year of birth to toll numbers 1543, 1544 and 700000 to know whether their voice will count in next week's general election.
The register has already been gazetted. If you are not on the register, you will not vote. You come 2027 to vote.
The manual register, meant to complement the digital register in case the KM's kits fail, is required to be in the polling stations 7 days before the polls. IEBC has maintained that the electronic register will be the first point of reference on election day.
A number of people will possibly go to the station on the 9th and think that their names are in that register and begin to accuse IEBC for removing their names. An opportunity had been given to them during the verification to correct those. If they did not do that, there's no way in which the Commission will have known that their names are not in that register.
The Commission is in the process of distributing 55,100 KM's kits, which will be used for identifying voters on election day and transmitting election results. On Wednesday, IEBC will receive the final consignment of ballot papers, which should be in the polling stations 3 days before the poll. Apol Kamau, TV47.
The latest opinion poll done by IPSOS shows that Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate would have commanding lead if elections were to be held, with a 47% preference followed by William Ruto with 41%. Roots Party candidate George Wajackoyah comes a distant third with 2.9%, and Wahiga Wahiga with 0.2%.
With less than a week to the general election, presidential candidates have continued to sell their agenda to the electorate, each hoping to get the highest percentage of support, which suggests that Raila Odinga of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya would lead in the general election with 47%, closely followed by his counterpart from Kenya Kwanza, Deputy President William Ruto, with 41% of the total votes. Roots Party flag bearer George Wajackoyah comes a distant third with 2.9%, and Agano Party's Wahiga Mwaure receiving a support of 0.2% of the total votes. 4% of those that were questions are, however, undecided on who to elect as the next president, with further predictions showing that 85% of the registered voters will turn up on the 9th of August to cast their votes.
And then we have those who refused to answer that particular question. Maybe they know, or they are afraid, or they are scared. 5.1%, and then 3.8% who basically tell us that they are undecided. They don't know at now.
On preference based on regions, William Ruto is the most preferred presidential candidate in the Rift Valley and Mount Kenya regions, with Raila Odinga commanding a lead in most of the regions. However, there remains some regions that are highly contested. According to the survey, 15% of the electorate is unlikely to turn up to cast their votes, with most of them being the youth, who cited reasons such as seeing no value in voting, lack of integrity during election, and a fear of violence arising in the country. According to IPSOS, the small percentage of the undecided voters can change if at all the candidates will manage to convince the number. Paul Munio, TV47, Nairobi.
All right, and we now get to the discussion after that very story that as well forms the basis of our conversation this morning. I have two gentlemen who are already on set for us to decipher on the politics of the day. It's only 5 days to the general election, and Kenyans are well braced for this, but questions continue to linger as to how ready, and prepared we are, but we can only cross fingers that indeed it will be a free and fair process. To look at the numbers, one of the key questions that many have been asking is as to whether we would have a possible runoff based on the kind of support the two front runners are enjoying, Deputy President William Ruto, Right Honorable Raila Odinga. But as the polls then would dictate, then Right Honorable Raila Odinga would appear to have an early lead in the event that we'd have elections today. Will that, spill into the 5 days or to the 9th of August? There's going to be some shift on the same, they say. We have about 7% undecided voters that hugely will be the determinant factors as to who, or the determinant factors to who carries the day. And so we get into this conversation by first of all, looking at these polls that many would argue are sometimes cooked and not legit. And therefore we are looking at about 4 that were released as of yesterday, 3 speaking of a possible Raila lead, and the other, of course, speaking contrary. And as well, the presidential candidates, 4 of them, the other 2 as well, have enjoyed a chunk, looking at about 2% for Wajackoyah and 0.2% for Wahiga Mwaure. And so as we get to this conversation, it will be an honor then to introduce the gentlemen who are with me right here. And next to me, I would say, Dr. Githiga Mwangi, Member of Parliament candidate of Kangema, as well as Ndegwa Wahome Wakili, that is a governor candidate for Nyandarua County, as well as a speaker of the very same county. Gentlemen, thank you so much for creating time. We get into this conversation as we take a look at the polls. Wakili, I know you would want to speak otherwise of these polls. 3 out of 4, projecting a possible Raila lead in the event that elections were conducted today. Just how crucial are opinion polls, exit polls, those ones that, you know, are polls that are just prior to the general election, and how much can we bank on the projections that have been presented? And while one would want to counter, you know, the processes that they use, you know, whether scientific or what exactly, I mean, don't you think the 3 out of 4 really would be perhaps genuine?
Okay, thank you very much, Rita, and allow me to again say good morning to all the people of our great county of Nyandarua, and also to all the Kenyans. And I would want to thank the people of Nyandarua because we have been conducting very peaceful campaigns.
Yeah.
And also the people of Kenya, because our campaigns have largely been peaceful, and I think that's for our country and for the future posterity. On the opinion polls, Linda, I would want to say that opinion polls have never given any direction in this country. We know those who have read in opinion polls since 2002 up to now, and they have never been president. And therefore, I take it that definitely we have never been told where these opinion polls are funded from. And further, when you look at the statistics, because we move around this country, what these opinion polls are speaking to is not actually the reality on the ground. And I would say also it is very suspicious when these opinion polls are being released. And I would say they are tailor-made to influence the outcome of the elections on Tuesday. Otherwise, it is very suspicious. Why do they have to come at this time? And on the same day, if again it was a bit staggered, I thought that it would seem a bit rational. But now, one day, these people don't work for the same people, they don't work together, they are not associated, but come out here to announce results on the same day. And we have been talking as Kenya Kwanza about deep state in these things. And I would not excuse the heart of deep state in all this. But on Tuesday, the people of Kenya will speak, and I know that we shall be preparing to swear in William Ruto as the 5th president of Kenya.
Okay. On the several petitions that we've witnessed in the past, you know, elections, opinion polls have hugely been used, you know, for litigants, for those ones that are, you know, respondents in terms of just garnering fodder to state their case or to make their case. Daktari, if these polls are anything to go by, I mean, do you suppose there's some essence of truth in how they are conducted or in what it is that they project? And I mean, if we are to look at those ones that have led on the polls before and successfully, you know, led and have not been, you know, successful enough to garner this, perhaps we'd be looking at the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, that a majority of his losses were based on merit, or is because the processes were compromised based on, again, the fact that we have even seen the courts nullifying, you know, an election that he participated in?
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
My name's Dr. Githiga Mwangi, as you said, from Kangema, and I send my greetings to all TV 47 viewers, and in particular the people of Kangema who at this moment in time are busy preparing for the final day on the 8th of August to pick their MP. They know their MP, of course, is Dr. Githiga Mwangi, who rise to the position on the 9th of August. Aside from that, Linda, these polls, in my view, are not necessarily 100%, but generally they are a very good pointer to where things are heading. It's not only in this political activity that polls have been used to determine the way things are going or what the polls are. It's a very popular thing in marketing, for example. And it has been used to identify needs and for people, for customers to tell for example, the manufacturers what their preferences are. So even when you say it's not accurate, to a large extent, they point in the right direction. They tell you that this is where things are going. Right. They can't tell you exactly how many votes one will get, But of course, in political activity, you cannot rule out distortions. But we've seen the polls in say largely showing the direction in which things are going. And for example, myself, I believe if the Azimio candidate ends up being the winner, it will just go to confirm that.
Okay, well, and this is interesting. Of course, we just look at the numbers and the projections and we ask, does it then come into cement the fact that many have argued that Right Honorable Raila Odinga still enjoys the kind of support that he has once enjoyed, in the country, or, perhaps to just quash what it is that many have argued that over time, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga has lost this support. I am told that Dr. Masanga will be joining us virtually and therefore allow us to take a short break. We loop him in and we get into this conversation some more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates, Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers, as we know agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why nilieka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to be between 28 to 32 degrees.
Walk this journey with us every Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
As earlier mentioned, we'll be having Dr. David Nyekorach Masanga join us virtually, but in studio still, Dr. Githiga Mwangi, as well as Wakili, who is here with us as we decipher some more on what is happening politically in the country. I know it's a season for them, a season to reckon, a season to reap, if you've sworn, and I mean, it's all what it is that we are looking forward to. 5 days to the general election. It looks like, the campaigns are all calm. And so we are looking at the numbers, the opinion polls, just how instrumental they are. We understand how, again, this top seat will shape the conversation of politics in the country. And therefore, it is in the best interest of every Kenyan to understand how this race of the presidents then will shape Raila Odinga still enjoys the kind of support that he once enjoyed. Honorable Wahome, if we are to go by what it is that these numbers dictate, for a moment just overlook the fact that, well, the numbers could have been doctored and assume that, well, let's go by what it is that they say. Does it then dictate that he really enjoys the kind of support that he once did? Because after the handshake, there was a general feeling that his supporters were a bit disappointed. Have they warmed up to him again?
Yeah, I think the Azimio presidential candidate has maintained his traditional constituencies to a large extent. Even if you listen to the crowd across the country, you'll find at the end of the day, he's still the dominant figure in the coast, western, northeastern, and Nyanza, and also Nairobi to a great extent. But what is most important is that William Ruto has retained the Rift Valley and Mount Kenya region support, and he has to a great extent eaten into Raila Amolo Odinga's constituency. Therefore, it is a tight race. But at the end of the day, looking at the infrastructure of voting in this country, you would tell that this is a presidency for William Ruto to lose. And I don't really understand with the coast and with these political movers and shakers, like the governor for Kilifi, Amason Kingi, Jumwa, all of those who are with Baba, and then we have this Kwale, and other constituents, Tana River. Ruto is the presidential candidate to beat in Tana River, which has been a traditional stronghold for Raila Odinga. Ruto also has a lot of presence in northeastern province. So although Raila Amolo Odinga, to a great extent, he has maintained his strongholds, but at the end of the day, is that also William Ruto has maintained their stronghold with jointly with Uhuru. Uhuru has not been able to shake the stronghold that they held together with Ruto, and Ruto has eaten into Raila Amolo's constituency. Yes.
All right, and therefore there's really nothing much for them to celebrate. When you look at these numbers, Daktari, just looking at the events of politics, you know, how we have seen the transitions and, you know, how we have witnessed in the previous, you know, dispensations, what are the likelihoods that the country is saved from a runoff?
One, we must credit Raila to the fact that he has a core support across the country. And in politics, like religions, when people believe in their leaders, sometimes it's not easy to move them around. You may go to regions where the leaders are moving around, but not necessarily their supporters. And that's what makes the difference. You go to, for example, Tana River or the coast, the leaders may move, but the supporters may not. And that sometimes makes a lot of difference. And if you look at these numbers, they are within the range of what has always been a Raila score. And I wouldn't be surprised if he maintains that score. And I believe that it has been a big achievement for Deputy President Ruto to get this far in terms of his score on these polls. But it also demonstrates that having been around and being on the track has always had advantages in politics.
Okay. Also massive for Deputy President William Ruto. Quite a force to reckon with, you think?
Yes, there's no question about that. Given that he's a first runner at this level, it is quite a bit. But you must also remember he was always around in the last 10 years.
That's true.
It's not new. So he's also benefiting from that legacy. But it is true, we can't take this away from him, that is quite an achievement to get this far in terms of polls.
Wakili, if these polls are anything to go by, then it means that it would position Deputy President William Ruto second. If he does not get to garner this presidency today, what are his future chances?
I don't want to think of William Ruto not being the president. But then if it happens, because anything is possible in this kind of dispensation, is that William Ruto will be a very important political figure in this country from now and forever, because he has created a very serious constituency and a very serious space. There are many of us who believe in William Ruto, and that is the guy brought to us to deliver total freedom to this country. And therefore, whether he is the president or not, we believe he will be the president. But if he is not the president, we also believe that he has a very great role to help to shepherd this country into the future. And that his role will be indispensable. And we shall be there to start with him, whatever the outcome as the president or in the opposition, as because that is the reality of politics. That one has to be in the leadership and the other one has to be in the opposition.
Okay. Yes. And we traverse the different parts of the country. I don't know whether we have Dr. Masanga already. All right, so we're trying to fix that, and once we get a hold of him, we engage him on the very same matter. We traverse the different parts of the country. I'd love to understand whether the momentum of politics is, you know, as one would expect in areas like Murang'a, because for the longest of time, we know that political seasons are normally charged. We always know that there's activity around. We always experience, you know, intense campaigns, and such has been the process in the country. But this time around, it appears a little bit different. Daktari, why do you suppose that there's not quite of momentum? Is it because then Kenyans are still grappling with the tough times, or what?
Linda, it is true. When I look at Mount Kenya generally this round, the political temperature is not as high as it normally is. And there are many theories for this. For example, in Kangema, we are campaigning like we have always done. But you can feel that among the voters, the activity is a bit low-key. And I believe one of the reasons that this is happening is because the Mount Kenya flag bearers are not in the race. Remember, these are generally powerful characters who are able to create support among people and to generally raise the level of political activity in Murang'a, in Kangema, in everywhere. So when I see what's going on, I can tell that the emotions that are raised by the State House race are not now being found in Mount Kenya in particular. And I believe that could be the case throughout. Remember, it's not just about the individual, it's about the resources. How much investment do they make in this race? If that investment is not there, you can feel that the game is not the same.
It's not the same. All right, Wakili, you know, Daktari speaks of the mountain, and for a moment it gets us to, you know, wish to understand. We have had conversations of how politics can be charged, both, you know, on positive and negative extremes. And for the longest of time, there's been that feel that it's always, you know, especially when it goes to the negative extremes, there's always that general feeling that, you know, this is a question of tribe, this is a question of ethnicity, and that it's the mountain against a certain community. They have said it's, or vice versa. They've said it's the mountain and the, you know, Luo side or the Nyanza side. It's been the mountain and the Kalenjin. And therefore, the silence of the mountain is a plus because then we do not see so much of animosity playing out. And therefore, again, we ask, what then is the role of the mountain in terms of making sure that as a people, we are accorded a peaceful process of election, whether they have one of their own that is strong enough on the ballot or not?
I think, Rida, in the mountain, our people are really very disappointed that they have been holding the presidency for the last 10 years, and that the economic meltdown at this particular time, it has never happened to them for the last many years that they can remember. And therefore there is no a lot of enthusiasm except that triggered by the candidature of William Ruto. And the big question the people of Mount Kenya are asking themselves, if we have had our own for the last 10 years, And this is where we are economically, that we cannot fend for ourselves.
Yeah.
So therefore, as Dr. puts it, there is no that excitement. Again, there is that drive always in Mount Kenya that there is someone or their own who will help to drive the agenda. And our agenda is economic agenda, which is cultivated around coffee, tea, rice, milk, potatoes. And as of now, although the other people are talking about it, the other presidential candidates are talking about it, it looks completely divorced from the addressing the very aspirations, the core aspirations of the people of Mount Kenya. Therefore, as you say, Rida, you go across or through Mount Kenya and you find that that excitement that is in the mountain around this time, it is not there. Actually, we are doing very flat campaigns, and with the economic meltdown, then it makes it worse. But I believe that there will be a new dawn, and it will be a new dispensation, cultivating hope and addressing the aspirations of the people of Mount Kenya. But as of now, people of Mount Kenya are very uncertain.
Okay.
There is that heavy air of suspense on what the future holds for them.
Why this level of uncertainty when Rigathi Gachagua comes on board and, you know, goes to a vernacular station and tells them, now you need not to worry, your son is here and therefore your interests are catered for. And so we have Martha Karua, we also have Wahiga Maure. Are they not, you know, mountaineers, or are they not, you know, enough to be looked at as, you know, representatives from the mountain? Dr.
I think it's all a matter of, weight and perceptions.
Yeah.
Linda, you, in all fairness, you can't say that, for example, Maore is at the level of Uhuru Kenyatta. And that's where the difference comes in.
Okay.
And because he's not, then he doesn't draw as much attention from the mountain as he would. It is about the position in all this Kenyan politics. It is two things: it's which position and which ethnic tribe, as you know.
Yeah.
That tends to drive a lot of mileage. So in all fairness, Mother Karua is there, and to be honest, her entry caused a bit of activity, a bit of emotions, and people are still saying there is a bit of hope there. But it is true. We know she'll be a deputy, not the occupier of the State House.
Yeah.
She will go to State House to work. But the owner of State House will remain Raila for that side, or Ruto on the other side. And Mount Kenya people know that. Two, traditionally, they have always felt secure economically in the hands of one of their own. Because, and it must be said here that sometimes back we went through a lot of campaigns where there was a story, it was just a story, Linda, they were saying it is 41 versus 1. Maybe.
Yeah.
So if you remove the 1, the gap does not remain the same, the 41 by 1. And the fears that have been created over time about Mount Kenya, sometimes maybe they are coming home to roost, and they're starting to feel now we are really in the hands of other people that we are not normally used to, and we don't know what the future holds.
And when you say that, well, of course, they always have a general feeling that they're safe with one of their own. I mean, we have had
everybody does
Kenyatta the first, yes, it cuts across, yeah. We've had Kenyatta the first, we've had, the former, that is Mwai Emilio Stanley Kibaki, may his soul rest in eternal peace. And we also have had the second Kenyatta. Do you suppose the interest of the people of the mountain, have been addressed, have been met to a point where they can confidently look at President Uhuru Kenyatta and say, go ye, well, you have served us, and, we say asante? Or are going to actually, dish a protest vote against, that person that the president then endorses?
There are two sides to it. I think to a large extent the economic status now or conditions do not help the leadership or the exit of President Uhuru Kenyatta in the eyes of the mountain. But, you know, blood is always blood. And if today, I can assure you, if Uhuru Kenyatta was running, these stories about his past and his legacy would perhaps be that consideration. Where we are now, and given the ethnic politics of Kenya, Mount Kenya would not have minded having a third and a fourth Kenyatta.
Okay.
Because they still believe if they have to choose, they are secure in one of their own. It is not Mount Kenya. It is the behavior of the others.
Okay.
Wherever Mount Kenya appears, he appears to be on one side, and the others are on one side.
Right.
So it's not always to focus on Mount Kenya. It's also to focus on the other people. How do they behave when Mount Kenya appears on the stage?
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Masanga is here with us. Wakili, allow us to loop him in briefly before we go far, away from this conversation of the polls. Dr. Masanga, what do you make of the polls that are being projected out here, and especially in relation to these two gentlemen, as to the numbers they enjoy, the possible wins, the possible of us not going for a runoff? Dr. Masanga, first of all, let me allow you to say jambo to the people as you tell us where you are.
Well, I am you've just called me on my way to the airport.
Okay.
But I will be here for some time and try to answer a few questions for an hour and so.
Thank you.
I disappear. First of all, I want to say hi to my friend, the Speaker of Nyandarua, if I can recognize that gentleman. I think he was the Speaker of Nyandarua, a great friend of mine in Jubilee. I am shocked today that he is even hammering Masanga. Yet I stood by him to make sure that people don't harass him in Nyandarua. I want him to look at my eyes and see that I've lived here and eaten so many granaries, that when I say something is going to happen, with Doctor there in the studio, we say it will happen. On this one, Linda, whether you like it or let me tell you, Kenyans will choose on Tuesday. But for me, I've made my mind, and I've been telling you in your studio every time, right? There's no question about that. We need a country that is united. We need a Kenya that is an example of Africa. We need a Kenya that can integrate Africa, not a Kenya that can dismember Africa. We as Africans were happy with Kenya as a model. Therefore, East or West, we need a leadership that doesn't cry. We need a leadership that takes firm decisions to unite people. And that is all I am saying. Of what amount it is. The Speaker of National Assembly of the Assembly of Nyandarua, please, teaching. You are one of the few people who should be the vanguard of the revolution. You have been talking to me and telling me how we can read Shakespeare. I am very shocked, Speaker, that today you are on the other side singing, and you have gone to school and you are singing books that don't exist. The bottom up doesn't exist. Have you seen people talking about it now? No, it is finished. Because you can't do it anywhere else. You can't do it in the mountain. Where will you tell the people of the mountain that my children are going in Poland in high schools, and for you generate a wheelbarrow, we start doing things from a system from Museveni of Uganda by saying Shimodo, what there is no more time of telling you Ruto the truth. And that parish model in Uganda is collapsing, has collapsed. And you can't bring the parish model bottom up in Kenya. The Kenya people are capitalists. The Kenya people work hard. And therefore, for me, Mr. Speaker, I am ready for a duel with you this morning.
Okay, well, gloves off, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether you agree to that, but speakers then are supposed to be neutral in most cases.
And by the way, tell him I'm an elder and of the Omofia clan. If he talks badly, I could curse him.
The speaker can never do that. He's a speaker, so there's no. I mean, you can be rest assured that we are not going to that direction. But then again, in response to what it is Dr. Masanga says, Speaker Wahome.
Linda, I like that guy so much. I like the guy when I met him at KTN, when he was really reasoning down things. I am very saddened. And the speaker, please, you can remain in that yellow uniform which has molested Africa. That yellow uniform from all the way from the Pearl of Africa, that has molested Africa. You can remain in it, but vote Raila Amolo Odinga.
All right. That would be almost impossible. And Speaker, you have the right to respond to Dr. Masanga. As you as well tell Dr. Masanga briefly.
Let me tell you. Didn't you see Kioni? Kioni was with Mudavadi, and you saw what happened.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Well, I mean, they keep saying that Kioni did not vote for Mudavadi. I think that's unfair. He's been here a couple of times. He says that that is not proper. I mean, it's a secret. Dr. Masanga, we're coming back to you. Let's allow the Speaker also to make a rejoinder on the same. Dr. Masanga, we're coming back to you. And Speaker, if we are to speak about the mountain today, what do you make of President Uhuru Kenyatta's reign? Has he carried the flag of the mountain good? Is he likely to experience a protest vote that is against his preferred presidential candidate based on the fact that there's been a general feel of disappointment by the people of the mountain?
Okay, first of all, Rida, I would want to respond to my friend, Dr. David Masanga. Actually, he has been afraid, and when I was going through tribulations in Nyandarua, in the hands of President Uhuru Kenyatta, because there is no way an assembly can be closed down for 8 months without the knowledge of the president of this country. And obviously, this misinformation was being peddled around by the governor for Nyandarua, that is Francis Kimemia, so that my onslaught on corruption would be stopped on its tracks. So Dr. Masanga actually would call me from time to time to try to understand what is happening. And being a foreigner, I really appreciated that, because not many people at that time could do that. So I respect him and his principles, and when he believes in something, he stands by it. And just like myself, and I think that is why we find convergence and concurrence in the way to approach issues. But what I would want to say about the president, I think has been very unfair. He has completely been default to the people of Mount Kenya region. We have seen delegations going to State House to express about their concerns, and which are addressed promptly by the president. Like in Nyandarua for the last 5 years, despite the president declaring that he was governor #1, we have not been able as the leaders of Nyandarua to meet him. He promised to build the 3 dams, that is Pesi Dam, Keja Dam, and Malewa Dam. Those 3 dams were to cost 54 billion shillings, and the entire Nyandarua would be supplied with clean water from the chest of the Abadeas. Nothing happened, and we are not sure anything will ever happen about the 3 dams. We have the Midland potato plant. The president had promised when we were in Sagana too that issue would be addressed within weeks, and that Nyandarua people would be able to take care of themselves through the potato crop, which is their biggest advantage in this country, in that we produce about that 5%. The president has not addressed that issue. All through to the issues of milk and the issue that really touch the hearts of the people of Nyandarua. Again, for the Mount Kenya is that our businesses in Kirinyaga Road, in River Road, in Gekomba, everywhere, our businesses have been destroyed. They have been brought on their knees. These people who operate in Gekomba, River Road, and Kirinyaga, they are our brothers and sisters. They are the breadwinners for many families in Mount Kenya region. Those people leader would be allowed to import commodities which are inspected by government agencies from the source, mainly China and India. And then they are brought to Kenya. They are inspected by government agencies. We pay taxes, but immediately we put them on in our shops. then the government factionaries come, take them away and destroy them. And this has been done under the watch of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Therefore, there is no rough roast between the people of Mount Kenya as of now and Uhuru Kenyatta. We don't see him as the person we expected to protect our interests as he did protect the interests of the entire country as the head of state. Mwai Kibaki never worked for the people of Mount Kenya, but he gave us an environment to thrive in business, in commerce, and in industry. And we shall forever be grateful to President Mwai Kibaki.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, interesting. And I'd love to know as to whether there's, again, disappointment as to how some quarters then would treat President Uhuru Kenyatta, because normally you would say that when a child or a son of your side is, targeted, most of the people will come out, in defense of them. And therefore, we get to understand this back and forth between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, that is William Ruto. What does it mean? Dr. Masanga, allow us to take a quick break and then we come back. We get your view on that.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates, Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why niliweka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring.
President Uhuru Kenyatta will still want to be around after he exits the stage, much as he said that he is there to guarantee the people of Kenya a peaceful transition and therefore proceed, leave the country for that person that will have won the election. But just why is it that we have witnessed this kind of, barbs being created between the president and a couple of other people, especially on the Kenya Kwanza side?
I think, Linda, it's not just about President Kenyatta, it's about the performance and the final stage act. I think when you have it takes two to tango, as they say. Both the president and his deputy are throwing too much dust into the air. And I believe to help the country move forward, any new regime that wants to come in should help the country to move away from the politics of personalities. The president is exiting. On the 10th of August, he will not be the president of Kenya. So we need to accept that he is not living in the same manner like Kibaki did, but we also have to remember that compared the two people, Kibaki and Uhuru, they have like 40 years difference. So I don't expect that Uhuru will just walk out. He will still be a player, directly or indirectly. But it is true, there is disappointed, especially in Mount Kenya.
Yeah.
And there are genuine reasons for having that disappointed. But when I look back, Linda, to all the other regimes, when they were leaving, it was about the same. The best example is President Moi, 24 years.
Right.
And by the time he left, it's like everybody wanted to leave him to leave yesterday. So this is a common sin. But my appeal to the key players now in this is to help the country move away from historical issues, help move away from personalities. I mean, like the deputy president group, everything starts and ends with Uhuru Kenyatta. In fact, it should start and end with Kenya and Kenyans. But Uhuru is outgoing. I don't think that we need to spend so much time insulting him and throwing all kind of acids at him, because he's outgoing, period.
So if he's out there, if he's the one who's throwing these acids, we just allow him to do that?
By the way, I'm not speaking for him. He's entitled to all this. He has an opinion like every other Kenyan. He has a career like every Kenyan. Who would have stopped him if for example, the Constitution allowed it? Who would have stopped him from running?
I think he
was going to run.
Right.
So
because
my final point here is, I am not saying that he has put up the best performance, Uhuru Kenyatta. But I'm saying it is now not about Uhuru Kenyatta.
It goes beyond
It's about Kenya.
Yes, briefly.
Actually, Rida, I'm very surprised with the comments by Daktari here. Because he seems to be speaking on behalf of Uhuru Kenyatta. What we are saying is that Uhuru Kenyatta should be a unifying figure for this country. He should not be the person that is seen as dividing into this Kenya into two formations or into two sides. And again, is that Uhuru Kenyatta, we have given him 10 years. He should allow Kenyans to breathe. He should allow Kenyans to make their decisions freely. He is holding instruments of power, and he should step aside and allow those who are dueling, that is the Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, to duel. He should be an impartial and non-partisan observer about the happening in this country, so that he can leave this country united. But as of now, the president has become a very defensive figure. We see him as belonging to a certain section of this country. Other people see him as owning him, and which is very dangerous for a country. So, because it seems Dr. Mwangi can be able to reach the president, tell the president to be non-partisan, to be impartial, to be the unifying factor that he should be for this country, and allow this country to breathe and to choose the leader on Tuesday.
Okay, Dr. Masanga.
I need to say that
just a second, Daktari.
I have no direct access.
I think you made a disclaimer and said that you
to the,
do not speak.
I have no direct access to the president. I don't talk to the president for that matter.
Don't worry.
But
don't
my
worry.
appeal.
Doctor, we're coming to you.
But my appeal, especially to those people who are aspiring to take Kenya to the next level, is that if they are behaving the way they are doing, the divisions that we are talking about will continue to this next level. We must come out somewhere, Ndegwa, and say Uhuru Kenyatta is leaving, full stop.
Okay.
So, and because he is leaving, let's concentrate on the future.
Technically,
the future is
Maliza Uende.
Yes, Ruto and Raila. Is the discussion.
But what happens when it's the president that triggers some of this, talks or acidity, or so to speak? At a point in time, he's the one who's now throwing jabs, and everyone is thinking, why don't you just keep silent?
I must say that is most unfortunate. He can't afford, as Ndegwa says, to play that role.
Yes.
But he's a human. Look at the way everyone throws these things at him.
Okay.
There was, I have said here before, a politician from Mount Kenya who was saying, if you sit around and people continue calling you a dog, some people would think you're actually a dog.
Yes, and therefore you have to.
So the president must come out and defend himself.
Dr. Masanga.
Yes, and thank you very much, Dr. Mwangi. I wish I was in the studio, I would shake your hand. You have talked like an elder. This guy here, this Wakili Mwen. Ask you a question. What has Uhuru done to you? What has Uhuru done to you that you hate him so much?
He does not, does he?
And wait first. And then when you look, you are talking of Uhuru has done 10 years. Hasn't Ruto done 10 years? The man you are supporting has also done 10 years. Yeah. You have forgotten you are a lawyer. You went through the Law Society of Kenya. You have forgotten that this is presidency. The two guys, and you better embark quickly wherever you are in Nyandarua when you win your seat. Embark on changing this constitution, that a man leadership with that phrase of presidency. A president should have a friend who should be working with him. Not a milker, not a parasite, not a tick who only milks the government projects. Uhuru goes to China to borrow money. This one is waiting to take away with his groups and the gangs. Let me come back soberly on one thing. I want to tell you that in Ndegwa today. Look at Jesus. There was the story of Jesus born in Nazareth. And as soon as Herod and the Pontius Pilate announced that the nail will enter the flesh, do you know what the people of Nazareth did? Have you read to beyond that standard? Or I should teach you. Because I better teach you a Bible also. The people of Nazareth said, give us our son. Give us our son. Give us the body. Let's take the body. What is happening at the moment? Uhuru Kenyatta is a human being. I write the legacy of Uhuru Kenyatta. Look at this. This is the legacy. I'm the author of the 2 books that you are going to see. Where in Ndegwa. This is it. And I'm going to document the things that Uhuru Kenyatta has done. Tuambiane ukweli. Uhuru Kenyatta is a son of the mountain. The more you go on throwing jabs at him, I tell you, Ndegwa, I will call you on 11th, and you will be shocked. And you better bring a cow in Nairobi for me. You are going to be shocked. The people of the mountain behave exactly like Baganda, where I'm born. They make their decision 2 days to go. And in fact, you will hide away from Ruto. You yourself, you might hide away. You will be shocked. If the voter turnout does not come to 70% in the mountain, I have done political science to the highest level in the whole planet world. If you want to add more lessons, I'll teach you. And
so 70% in favor of who, mostly?
No, 70% voter turnout.
Yes, that is voter turnout. That's saying. But what are the likelihoods that they're going to be in favor of that one that President Uhuru Kenyatta endorses, or Deputy President William Ruto?
I am saying if voter turnout of 70% in the mountain where Ruto has focused his support, don't turn up to vote.
A bit of a hitch?
Yes. Raila will beat him very early because Ruto depends on this 70% turnout in the mountain. If it doesn't occur, Linda,
yes,
that speaker of Nyandarua will go in the bush and hide from Ruto. You know, because you have gone on to insult their son. You are insulting the president. That speaker, Uhuru has no problem personally with you. Uhuru is
Dr. Masanga, that's a hitch. And I mean, aside from it appearing as though President Uhuru Kenyatta has personal problems with people, and I think he categorically states that, you know what, I have been at the top of the helm. I have not come for you. Why would I wish to come for you at this last hour
Exactly.
when I am
Exactly.
going?
Yes,
Look here. Can I finish?
Doctor, make
Because
it brief, and then there's a bit of a hitch. We might need to fix that.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, what I would want to say, Rita, is that Dr. Masanga, my friend, I would want to tell him that I have no problem with Uhuru as a person. I actually was the Secretary General of his party in Nyandarua, and I also campaigned for him in Laikipia in 2012, 2013, when the Laikipia TNA office led to GNU, led by Mwangi Kejori. In 2017, I stood by the president in both the primary elections and the secondary elections on 26th of October. So I have no personal issues with the president, but I'm concerned about his policies. When he is a president who can silently observe when a county assembly, a parliament, is closed for 8 months to allow corruption to thrive, I disagree with him, and I'm very concerned that that can happen in a democratic country like Kenya. You just start wondering what else is happening that is completely unconstitutional and a slap on the constitution. The other issue is that I don't agree with the president on many issues that affect our people, because there is nothing to sing about the president when Nyandarua people have no water. We are at the water tower. He has all the resources. He has all the know-how. And he comes there without any provocation. He promises 3 mega dams to ensure that every home in Nyandarua has water. It has not happened. He comes to Nyandarua, promises that there will be value addition on the potato crop, because that is our main advantage. The center of our economic activities is the potato crop. It has not happened when he is going home. And as I've said, he has overseen the destruction of our businesses in Nairobi. And these are the people who have been feeding their families back in the Mount Kenya region. Therefore, it is not about Uhuru as the person. It's about Uhuru the president and his policies. Also, the policies touching on milk. Nyandarua milk, at one time, we were selling a liter at 17 shillings, and you could only sell only half of what you produce. If you produce 20 liters, they only take 10 liters at 17 shillings. Then you are left on your own designs about what to do with the balance of the 10 liters. And most of it went to waste. Therefore, the policies of our president, our beloved son, have been very destructive to the people of Mount Kenya.
Okay. Well, there you go. And I think, Dr. Masanga, do we have you?
I think I need to say something,
Yes.
Linda. It is true that there is a lot of disappointment in Kenya, in Mount Kenya. But it's also true that, like the old saying goes, the cup is either half full or half empty. Where do you want to focus? Because you can't actually say that everything that has been done in the last 10 years has been a failure. There has been some successes. I believe the successes, especially on infrastructure, has been good. And if we were to talk, and I don't want to dispute what Ndegwa is saying, because to a large extent it's true, but Nyandarua has been without water since 1963. So you can't wholly say that it is Uhuru who has not provided water to Nyandarua, but it is true he promised 3 dams. I go back to my place. He promised a big road called Mau Road in Ndegwa.
Yes.
He's now living with the road half done.
Yeah.
And I want to appeal to him while he's still in the office to make sure that this road will be finished, because one of the things it does is that it opens up Ndegwa's area, it opens our area, some parts of Mount Kenya that have never been accessible before. And this road is very important to Kangema. In fact, it goes through Kangema. And for your information, my village, for the first time, would have seen a tarmac road. As we sit here now, there is no tarmac road anywhere in Ichichi and other villages around there in Kangema. So I still appeal to the president in these last days to ensure that he leaves things in place, that this very important link road is done and completed for the benefit of people of Mount Kenya and Nyandarua and everywhere else, and in particular the people of Kangema, because for us it will be having a big positive impact on our economic activities. Yes.
All right, well, and so before we get a hold of Dr. Masanga, I guess then we shelve this one for a moment as we eagerly wait to see how the numbers will play out. It's only 5 days to the general election. The IEBC, in your own assessment, has done so well so far?
I think I give credit to the IEBC. There is a lot of political posturing and a lot of pressure that is being put on them from all sides. And IEBC has been made an organ of suspicion by all the political formations of this country. But I'm happy that their chairman is very firm and they are very clear on all the issues and how they should be addressed. And I'm also happy that the chairman is leading a team that is united. They speak in one voice, and therefore this is also very critical. I saw also some misinformation and some statements meant to taint the leadership and the IEBC in general from the security agencies. But I think the chairman came out very strong and very clear as who is the boss and who is in charge of the electoral process in this country. And therefore, also the delivery of the materials, the kind of information we are getting from the election managers in the counties. We are having daily briefs on what is happening, where they are moving the materials, how they are secured. And I think at the end of the day, I have no issues at all with the IEBC. The only little shortfalls is where the parliament never facilitated the IEBC in the best way that IEBC had requested. And that is not an obligation. It cannot be cast on the IEBC because it is Parliament that was supposed to do that. But I think as of now, the presidency, as it is, should be able to give all the support and all the agencies involved in the electoral cycle. They should be able to give IEBC all the support and cooperation. And I believe that the IEBC will deliver an accountable, transparent, verifiable election come Tuesday, the 9th day of August 2022.
All right. And it's not just IEBC that we look at, Dr. If you look at the papers this morning, we have the Standard newspaper, speak of the high stakes, the 10 big names to watch. We have the faces of Hilary Mutyambai, those ones that are in the security sector. Kibichu, we have the face of Matiang'i. We do not forget to speak of President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, of course, Martha Koome, the likes of Chiloba, and the big faces that will be instrumental in this conversation of the election. They all are preparing. They all are setting the stage to make sure that they guarantee Kenya a free and fair process. Of course, the courts are eagerly waiting because definitely then they do not come out of this season without having people, litigating, questioning, challenging the results, and so much more. What to expect as a people of Kenya?
Thanks, Linda. I must say, so far, if we leave the little tips here and there and look at the bigger picture, IEBC has sped on to achieve an election that will perhaps be better than others that we have seen.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very impressed by the fact that they have maintained their cool despite of a lot of noises. I don't think IEBC has come through as much noise as it has come through lately. But I believe the whole thing about IEBC is all about us, Kenyans. It's like a plane that is going through a storm, and everybody is trying to scream at the pilot. It doesn't help the situation. IEBC should be supported, should be encouraged, because they have shortcomings like every Kenyan. I don't think there is a single act by Kenyan institution that can go without some criticism. So they are a reflection of the Kenyan society. But I believe they have done a good job so far. In Kangema, for example, we're getting good communication between the candidates and the IEBC. The trainings have been going on. I think they are now just finishing off with the polling station officers, the POs as they call them. And I think by the time we hit the end of this week, everything would have been in place from their communication to deliver maybe a fair election, a good election on the 9th. So far I think it is important. But also, it's not about Chebukati. It is about all of us, including these 10 names. All these are stars of the act. And they all must play their part. What must happen is that you play your part and the other people also allow you space to play your part. Interference is a problem. If you go and before you have played your part, you start pointing fingers at the security agents, start pointing fingers at Parliament, pointing fingers at the president and everybody, then the game gets murky. Kenyans must learn to allow each other to shine without having to throw too much mud in it.
Yes, Dr. Masanga, before we take a short break, perhaps to wind up on what you were saying earlier on and also give us your view on these 10 faces that are or they find themselves on the papers this morning, and generally all those key players that are involved in making sure that the election is a good process, and I mean not forgetting the role of the common mwananchi.
First of all, I just want to say thank you very much, Linda. I am one of the few critics, and Dr. Mwangi, don't blame me for this, but I've been one of the few critics of that organization. But I seized the fire because we wanted a credible, free, and fair election. It is not wrong to criticize and tell the loopholes of insanity. The loopholes of insanity were many. But when they came up to shake hands and agree, the government shook hands. And this is what they should have done a long time ago. You remember Ndegwa and Dr. Mwangi, there was a committee that a national ministerial, interministerial and other agencies, DPP, DCI, judiciary, police, who said, can we sit down? Don't tell us how you are going to do it, but let's sit down and find obstacles that could come on the way, including obstacles of money. And immediately, Mr. Ndegwa, you know, he's one of the lawyers advising a man who is very bankrupt in ideas. You know, Ndegwa is very, very learned guy, very good. A man who goes to read at the age of Ndegwa in a law school, give him credit. And he struggled to read. And he came out with his law degree. He's the one.
But without focusing much on him, Daktari. He's here to speak for himself, yes.
If we are making bad comments, you can go to River Jordan and sink. But for me, I am honest man. IEBC, where we are now, we cannot blame it anymore. We should encourage them. We should give them support. And they finish the race. Then hand over the race to the 14 days. I can see some people who have never gone to school, who went to school compound but did not enter the school, Dr. Mwangi.
Yes.
And you 20.
I don't understand why today the network is not so clear. Most of the times with Dr. Masanga, it's a clean feed. So we take a short break and then we try and fix that, come back, expound more.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
Waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has...
Welcome back. The last laps of this particular segment. Dr. Masanga, do we have you? Dr. Masanga? Quite unfortunate, but yes, here we are. That over time, we are a country that, you know, is operating on ethno-majoritarian basis. That over time, it's about what does my region stand to benefit? What is it that the people of the mountain will benefit out of Raila Karua presidency, out of Ruto Gachagua presidency? What is it that the people of, you know, the Rift Valley, what will they get out of this? How then do we get ourselves off this very hook? Because it's on the same lenses that Dr. Masanga then would argue, why not support your own? This is a son of your soil. Why is it that you decide to support somebody else, contrary to what one would have expected based on how we have voted over the, you know, over time? Dr. Ari.
It's a very, in my opinion, unfortunate trend. Because I look back, like in the days of freedom fighting, in the days of the liberation for Kenya, a lot of those people did not look at their background, did not look at their tribes. They just formed what was a national front and went for the liberation of the country. Mm-hmm. And what has surprised me is over time, this has tended to kind of decline. Mm-hmm. What you might call nationhood. There is very little patriotism shown, especially at the top level, and therefore at the bottom level almost none exists. Mm-hmm. As you say, Kenyans always follow like the tribal lines in everything. You will see it also in this election. Yeah. So I think my fear has my thoughts were that with a bit of education, and Kenya today, it cannot be gainsay that it's a fairly educated and literate nation. But I meet professors, I meet graduates, I meet everybody. And the minute we get to some discussion, quickly they go back to their ethnic backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And they argue and they fight from those fronts. And this is something that must change. There is a bit of hope from the younger generation, especially because of intermarriage. Linda, I must tell you, the few weddings that I go to, almost the majority of them are intermarriages. Right. And there I start to believe that the younger generation is trying to rise above this ethnic problem. But it is still exists. It needs to be tackled. And I think it has to be tackled, especially through education and from role models and from the top. Mm-hmm. I still find a situation where if I go to a petrol station that is owned by, I'm just using an example, Aluo, all the workers are Luo. I mean,
that's absurd.
I don't understand it. I go to a petrol station that is owned by Kikuyu, most likely all the workers will be Kikuyu.
Yeah.
But I must say this also, that I noticed that in those petrol stations owned by Kikuyus, there are more other tribes than in any other. What does that mean? That even despite all the blames and all the accusations we get, perhaps we are rising out of it faster than the other communities. But it is still there, and it needs to be tackled, because it is the same thing that really not help the country to move forward in many ways.
Okay, well put. Dr. Masanga, we have you?
Yes, I am here.
Yes, proceed.
Now, my friend Ndegwa, I'm on you today until you change your mind.
Until he changes his mind. Is it not too late, Dr. Masanga? You should have been targeting the undecided voters, if any.
Let me tell you, I was telling you, Linda, that the IEBC at the moment needs support. We can't condemn them anymore. It is too late. Let them pass on to the other stage. Finish the election, declare the winner, who is going to be, to my heart, for the years I've lived on planet Earth, 67 years. Thank you, God, for giving me this life. Raila Amolo Odinga will come victorious. He's a Democrat. He's a liberator, not a convict. You are electing two convicts.
Are they?
And Ndegwa, I am shocked that a lawyer like you are electing a convict whom you know is convicted.
Are they?
Whether he's appealed or he's convicted.
Are they, Dr.
Let's be
Masanga?
honest. These are convicts.
They are not.
And the convicts you
Wakili will tell you they are not.
And don't look this way. Look at my eyes. I'm your teacher now. You are electing two people who have been convicted by the judiciary. And they are going to petition their petition before the same judiciary. One took Muteshi's land. He never appealed against the ruling. He was convicted by a court and fined 5 million shillings. He has never appealed. I've looked, I'm a researcher. I've researched in the High Court of Kenya. He never appealed against the conviction. That conviction still stands. The other man, the court recently and pronounced him a convict of proceeds of theft. And this is Ndegwa from Nyandarua looking for 54 billion dam. Dam. You are now going to elect convict versus liberators.
Is that not misplaced, Dr. Masanga? And I think in his position, Wakili Ndegwa should be able to respond to the same. Can they be equated to convicts? We're coming to you, Dr. Let's get to hear the view of... Allow us to hear the view of Wakili on that one.
They will turn up to be the most successful because they will begin a new Kenya that Dr. Mwangi is talking about. They will bring a Kenya of dignity, a Kenya of hope, a Kenya of integrity, a Kenya. Ndegwa, you know very well that the Constitution of Kenya is integrity. Chapter 6 is integrity. It is integrity.
But just who will stand, Dr. Masanga, and let's allow Wakili Ndegwa.
Without integrity.
Dr. Masanga, let's allow let's allow Wakili to as well, submit on the very same matter. Wakili, these ones can be equated to convicts, really?
No, they obviously are not. The Dr. William Ruto, in the case of Muteshi, was taken through a civil process. You cannot have a conviction through a civil process, and therefore there was no conviction. And maybe because there is that misrepresentation of facts. Dr. William Ruto, when he understood the facts around the RAD, because I've been involved in that matter, when he understood the facts around the case for Muteshi, actually the RAD was never transferred from Muteshi to Dr. Ruto. The RAD had been taken from Muteshi by people working in the RAD registry. and they manipulated the documents during the crisis of 2007-2008. So when the Dr. Ruto was being offered that land, it was in the names of other people, different people, and Dr. Ruto paid for it, and there is an agreement to that effect. But when the matter went to court, and he understood how the lad had left Muteshi to these people who sold it to him, he decided to sort out Muteshi without any drama. So it was a civil process, there was no conviction. On Gachagua, they have said that that money was the proceeds of crime, and a judge of the High Court has declared that the money be released to the state. But Gachagua has obtained a stay order, and he has appealed to the Court of Appeal, so there is no conviction. And the Kenya system, which is adversarial, is that you are treated or considered innocent until otherwise proven guilty. Therefore, for Dr. Masanga, my friend, is that we support Ruto because Ruto is pro-people. Because like John Paul said, is that Ruto smells like the goats or the sheep that he herds. And therefore that is why we are close to him. Uhuru might be my tribe, but he might not be my brother. He has not related to me the way Dr. Ruto has related to me. And that is the bottom line. And to move this country forward, we must come out of these tribal cocoons. And we know that we belong to a nation, a progressive nation called Kenya. And Ndegwa Wahome is one of the progressive people of this country. And we want to drive Kenya as a people, as a nation, devoid of this negative ethnicity. Yes.
All right, and yes, Dr. Here we are. We speak hugely of the question of ethnicity, and you have articulated pretty well these matters. Can we view these gentlemen, as convicts? They have been cleared by the IEBC. They have gone through all these processes. We staring at disaster in the making in the event that they are sent to power. Just looking at the cases that they are having or they are handling at the level of the courts as it stands.
Linda, to say that they are convicts, I think is a bit too far. Taking it a bit too far. I think they have issues in courts, like many other Kenyans. But you must remember, it is at the top. When you are at the top, you are expected to be as clean as you can be. And that's where it comes from. And definitely the two cases quoted, I think, do not deliver them as convicts, but they still have a lot to answer to. When you are in a case, in the case of like the deputy governor or the deputy president who is coming through now, being described as having obtained money of crime and those things, it doesn't inspire confidence. And this is perhaps where we should be walking away from in terms of the country. Because how does it then, and you end up in that situation? And a lot of Kenyans believe that a lot of money is lost, especially at the top, because people have access to Kenyan wealth, and sometimes they don't get it in a fair way. I believe, definitely, the two people, in my view, are not convinced to use that language, but they still have some things that do not give a good, do not inspire.
Okay. Dr. Masanga. Today the network is really not in favor of Dr. Masanga. Why, I do not understand. Yes, Dr. Masanga.
Dr. Mwangi, don't run away from the word convict. A court in Nairobi found Gachagua of proceed.
But the process is not ended yet, since he has appealed this way.
No, it does.
Dr. Masanga, it looks like today we won't have you at all.
Let me tell you, Waruke was sentenced to 67 years. He appealed. But does it remove Waruke from the sentence? Gachagua, that man in Ndegwa talks about Muteshi land. that is a civil matter, is not a conviction against you in court. Surely, you return the degree of law from Lumumba. Wewe Ndegwa, toa degree rudisha kwa PLO Lumumba. How can you say that on national television? Surely, Wakili Ndegwa today, if I were in the studio, I would have wrestled you. What? A person has been convicted in a civil court, fined 5 million shillings for Muteshi's land. You have no right to say that he was not convicted. He never appealed. If he found that the documents were, fake, he should have just appealed and told the court. But the judge in Eldoret sentenced Ruto for having grabbed Muteshi's land. That's it. That's the bottom line. Then what Ruto should have done was to ask this Wakili, who has demoted himself from a speaker of Nyandarua to a peggy boy in Karen and other places running with Ruto.
Dr. Masanga, I think now you're taking it to the extreme. Wakili is here. Why?
No.
I mean, he has a right, a democratic right to take a side, just like you have, in as much as you're not going to vote.
I am not, let me tell you, I'm not going to vote, but I have never begged Uhuru Kenyatta for a penny.
And what makes you think Wakili has done that?
Wakili support, haven't you seen the way he's even talking? He supports Ruto like, he supports Ruto like
a democratic right, don't you think? A democratic right, sir.
And maybe leader.
Yes.
For Dr. Masanga, my brother, I think he is very worried that he is my friend, and I cannot support.
Let's allow him respond.
Linda, let me finish. Because the Wakili, you are in the studio, you can hammer me when I'm gone. The network is confusing here. Wakili, a convict is when the court says you got that land, serving the is different. But when you have been convicted by the judiciary of Kenya, what Dr. Mwangi is saying, smell. Even if you say you appeal, you are still smelling. Kajagwa was convicted by a judge, Justice Maina, and said return the money. He doesn't have that money today. The money has been taken by the state. He can appeal. He can go to Jesus, but it will not take away the first conviction. And then you go to the court. Let me tell you, Linda, now, and I'm telling you, let the IEBC do its work. After 11th, after 10th, after the announcement, do you know how many applications will be in the Supreme Court? Do you really know? Have you researched? This man who talks about rice, he talks about rice. Mchere. You come and eat mchere in Sagana. You know, he's thinking of food only. Kikuyus don't think about food. Kikuyus think about ideas and developing businesses, not coming to eat food in the Sagana State Lodge. So I am not against any of them. And the Speaker of Nyandarua loves me. He loves me because I stood with Ruto when nobody could stand with Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya. So give me a credit. Give me a credit for having stood for free. I have never gone to President Uhuru Kenyatta's State House and asked for a penny.
Dr. Masanga, and in their bid, and I have watched you, in their bid, you really supported these two gentlemen, as well, hitting hard the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. What made you change your mind? Briefly.
Unity of purpose, a united Kenya.
Is that what they guarantee? After the handshake, the country did not get to that level of unity that you speak of. It saw a crop of, supporters of Deputy President William Ruto feeling a little bit, uncomfortable and not loved, a little bit marginalized. And so, how can you say that this was unity of purpose? How can you say that out of the handshake, there's been that ultimate peace that has been felt in the country when there's a quarter of the population that feels disenfranchised?
Let me tell you, even Jesus, when he was going to die, Barabbas asked him, are you not the one who has been making miracles in Jerusalem? Why can't you save yourself? Now, Linda, you're asking me like that.
Yeah.
This country was going down to dogs. And Uhuru Kenyatta stood firm and saw where the country was going. And as a leader, that with the country dismembering. That one, he even asked Ruto, what can we do? Ruto supported the handshake originally. But Ruto later on, when he saw that Raila has been his mentor, there is nowhere where Ruto has been apart from slapping Mr. Chesire, where he has won an election free and fair. He slapped Chesire, terrorized Chesire. Chesire is hunting him down. He won't have the presidency.
Well, we can only wait to see. We only have 5 days. Dr. Masanga, we only have 5 days. 5 days. Do not celebrate just yet. We have 5 days, and we agree that these two gentlemen have indeed put up a fight, and they enjoy massive support. That is why this morning you have focused on him and not on Wajakoya and not on Mwaure. And that is a clear indication that you acknowledge that he stands a chance. Gentlemen, we have 10 minutes to go.
If I can answer, my friend, Dr. Masanga.
Dr. Masanga, let's allow Wakili come in as well.
Daktari, and I agree, leader, because I never forget history and the people who have done good things for us and for the country.
Yeah.
I know when we had a lot of problems with Ruto and Uhuru at The Hague, Dr. Masanga stood with them, and we stood with them. And even when I had those issues in Nyandarua, it is a few people, including Dr. Masanga, who would call and want to know what is happening in Nyandarua. So I appreciate him for that. But Dr. Masanga, you should not thrive on deep state propaganda. If Ruto is a convict under the constitution of this country, he cannot be allowed to contest. So if he never appealed against the case for Muteshi, then he could not be allowed even to contest for the presidency or even the deputy presidency in 2013 and 2017. Therefore, in short, I'm telling you, there is no conviction. The way this deep state is hunting down Dr. William Ruto, if there was a conviction, he could have not seen the inside of a ballot. And therefore, there is no conviction against Dr. William Ruto. On Gachagua is that they found that the 202 million was our proceeds of crime. That was only a judge of the High Court. Rigathi Gachagua has all the way to the Supreme Court. He has already filed a notice of appeal in the Court of Appeal, and that money can never be released to the state. It will remain in his account until his appeal is exhausted. So therefore, let us not deal with issues that are not factual, that are not helpful to this country. And in any event, when Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga came together, they divided this country into two. They never brought unity to this country. They only isolated some of us who are not singing their theme, their rhythm. Therefore, let us, because for democracy it is important, we be at different sides, we check each other, we balance each other for the larger good of this country.
All right. Well, speak to your people in Kangema, because you see, it all goes to that local aspect, that politics is local, that despite the fact that maybe they could not be having that one presidential candidate that they would wish to align to, that should not stop them from waking up in the morning to go out there and vote, because there's been this general feeling again that we are likely to experience a lot of voter apathy at the level of the mountain.
Thanks, Linda. That's what it appears right now, but I know the people of Mount Kenya, as they say, at the last minute, they always come out positively. They always make the right decision. I believe, despite not having a candidate running for the State House or a presidential candidate, it is necessary that Mount Kenya takes its position in the Kenyan political system. There are many votes in Mount Kenya. It is important that they are brought out clearly in this election so that everyone will understand where Mount Kenya stands in all this. There is no need for voter apathy in Mount Kenya because they are Kenyans like any other, and the candidates running are also Kenyans.
Yeah.
In Kangema in particular, I would appeal to them to come out in full numbers, to come out strongly and vote for Dr. Githiga Mwangi as the next MP for Kangema. There is need for Mount Kenya to continue playing its role in the political arena.
All right.
And I appeal to individuals, to residents of Kangema to ensure that they play their role by coming out and voting in this general election like they have done in the past. There is no need for apathy because life will continue after the elections on the 9th of August.
Oh, yes.
Therefore, please come out early and vote for Dr. Githiga Mwangi.
All right, and all the best, sir, as you take up that challenge. Dr. Masanga, your parting shots.
Thank you very much, Ndegwa. Today you owe me one cow, a great cow that I need.
You celebrate so.
And thank you very much for all of you. And Dr. Mwangi, I wish, and I've told, successful, and you will be a good debater in the parliament.
Thank you.
And first of all, remember these words: Baganda, Kikuyu, Ashanti, Zulu, Shona. They come out last minute and they don't kill their children. They don't kill their children. I'm telling you what Uhuru Kenyatta doesn't know. Doesn't know that. We have come at the last minute.
Dr. Masanga, you need to know that it's not President Uhuru Kenyatta who will be on the ballot.
It is not him, but we are changing the hearts of the people.
And so right now, Raila Odinga is a project of the state.
They can't see their children, their child being insulted. Yes, but what Ruto has done, the mistake Ruto has done, is to insult Uhuru Kenyatta. That Mwangi seated there. If you go and insult Uhuru Kenyatta near Mwangi's house, and I say Uhuru Kenyatta is very bad, and you are Ruto from the mountains of the Angel of Gabriel or somewhere, Mwangi will not be happy because Uhuru Kenyatta is the son. What Ruto has made a mistake is to start insulting or abusing or throwing words at the president. You don't belittle the big tribe in Africa. I'm telling you. Baganda never want you to talk about their Ashanti don't want you to talk about their king. The Zulu, even if Zuma is a bad man, they give Zuma the vote. Even if Zuma was a thief, they gave him the vote until he's caught in court. The Shona, Mugabe was very, 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 very difficult friend of mine, but they gave Mugabe votes. I'm telling you, do your politics widely. Don't read the narrative like a doctor, like a wakili Ndegwa.
All right,
Dr. Read.
Well put, well put.
I want you.
Okay, thank you very much, Leader, and I really appreciate this discourse with Dr. Masanga and Dr. Mwangi, and also Leader for being a very good host. On 9th of August, I'm appealing to the people of Nyandarua to go out there in large numbers, and also the people of this country, peace-free, and make their final judgment on who should lead them at all levels of governance in this country. For the people of Nyandarua, I'm telling you, let your vote on 9th of August 2022 be a blessing to you, to your children, and to your future. And I'm telling them that by voting for Ndegwa Wahome as their next governor, they will be freeing themselves from the bondage of corruption.
Dr. Masanga, you have had your time. It is time for Wakili to as well submit.
Yes, I'm saying that the people, my final submission is that by voting for me, the people of Nyandarua will be freeing themselves from the bondage of corruption. And without corruption, with the proper collection of revenue in Nyandarua, with harnessing the potato crop and the dairy industry, Kenyans and the Nyandaruans will come out the richer, and there will be hope for us, for our children, and for our future. So on 9th of August, vote wisely. It is about this country. It is about our county. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Wakili Wahome Ndegwa, for speaking to us this morning. Gubernatorial candidate for Nyandarua County, all the best. And once again, Dr. Githiga Mwangi, who's also a Member of Parliament candidate, Kangema constituency, Shibin Murang'a County. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. The Chair Pan-African Forum, Dr. David Nyekorach Masanga, as well. Asante sana for your submissions and so much feedback on our social media platforms. Mlachake Isili, we appreciate your contribution. Daniel Mutitu, Kiama Boniface, as well as numerous others that have sent their submissions. Unfortunately, time would not allow us to